favor, we need you to turn your video off so that you guys can tune in from a link. Daryl, we ready?
Miss Gordon, put your mic on mute and all right.
This is real. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Get ready, get ready. How is everyone today? We are with the Let's Talk Business with Cheryl J. Cusso show. I am the co-host, but host today, Dr. Shanae Davis, and we have an amazing lineup today for Women's Heart
Recording in progress.
Month. Actually, it's Heart Health Awareness Month, but we had on the 3rd of this month, it was Women's Go Red Awareness Day. So let me introduce the powerhouse guests that we have today, and then we'll also hear from our very special guest, our very own Cheryl J. Cusso. First, we have Ms. Kiana Cressman, and she is the Tampa Bay Area American Heart Association Executive Director of Development and Community Health. She is an award-winning strategist. Her core focus areas are social determinants, evidence-based policy, and specifically the social determinants of health that contribute to health disparities. She has over 20 years of leadership experience in healthcare and regularly collaborates with community, scientific, business, and medical leaders to improve community health and health awareness via population initiatives. We also have Dr. Sabrina Nelson Winters. She's a nurse practitioner, a certified registered nurse anesthetist, and acclaimed nurse educator. She received her BSN degree from Wilmington College and also her master's in science from LaSalle and Trinidad University School of Anesthesia. She is likewise a wonderful doctor of nurse practitioner, and she received that degree in 2013 and instructs at South University, Southern New Hampshire University, and has done these things since obtaining her Doctor of Nursing practice. Most recently, she's joined the Florida Gulf Coast University as an assistant professor and Doctor of Nursing Anesthesia program there. She is a servant woman at heart and a member of the Florida Association of Nurse Anesthesiology, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, as is our special guest. And my favorite component of her resume is that she is my soror and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Tampa Metropolitan Alumni Chapter. Our final guest is Attorney Geraldine Williams Shaw, an accomplished attorney and trailblazer in the Black community and a civil rights pioneer. She is an attorney in this area and received her JD at the Florida State University College of Law, her MBA at the Clark Atlanta University in journalism, her bachelor's of journalism as well, from the University of Florida, where she was amongst the first of 14 Black students to matriculate through that program. As an attorney, she has litigated in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals and also the 2nd District Court of Appeals. She was the owner of the Capital Outlook weekly paper, a writer for Ebony Magazine, South Africa, and also a reporter of the St. Pete Times. Among the professional affiliations, she has the Florida Bar Association, the Edgecombe Bar Association, the Hillsborough Association of Women Lawyers, and there are a number of community affiliations as well. Like the board member of the East Ybor Historic Civic Association, the Buffalo Sisters, many country western line dances, and also the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as a host of other affiliations. We just can't go through it all. So those were our guests, but our powerhouse guests today, the reason why we are here, the reason why we are focusing on Heart Health Awareness Month, albeit, of course, it's February, but Cheryl Jennings Cusseau is the first African-American nominated in this area for the distinction of the American Heart Association's Woman of Impact. That's very important because here in Tampa and throughout, African Americans suffer at disproportionate rates of cardiovascular health issues. And this disparity has to be mitigated. And we're going to do everything that we can to make a significant footprint this month through April for this cause. Cheryl Cusseau is a native Tampanian. I'm from Georgia, so I always get that wrong. She was born to the late James and Frances Jennings. She was a graduate with honors from the Chamberlain High School. Professionally, she began her journey in a nursing program, but due to high-risk pregnancies, she stopped. That path led her, to our great benefit, to a Bachelor's of Science in Healthcare Services and also a Master's of Business Administration. Today, Cheryl is the owner of Cusseau and Associates. It's a management consulting firm and also the first franchisee publisher of the DSI Black Pages that benefits all of us here in Tampa because we know where the Black businesses are. Her accomplishments and faith of God led her to begin the Let's Talk Business with Cheryl J. Cusseau, also on the In Touch News radio program that broadcasts each Wednesday to encourage and empower our community in the areas of housing, health, messaging, marketing, and other events. Most recently, as the first person of color nominated with this distinction for the Women of Impact, she's going to tell us about why she accepted this nomination and also motivate us as African Americans in our community and beyond all demographics to make her #1 in this race. So welcome to everybody here today. So first, I would love to start with our special guest from the Heart Association, Ms. Kiana. Kiana, please tell us about the Go Red for Women campaign, Heart Health Awareness Month, and what this Woman of Impact distinction is all about.
Absolutely. The American Heart Association's Go Red for Women is a national movement to amplify women's heart health awareness for women everywhere, because cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women, including moms. Over 50% due to studies at the Heart Association show that women entering their maternal health, 50% of them have less than optimal or poor cardiovascular health. And it amplifies in the African American community. Over 50,000 Black women die every year of heart disease. And as you know, plenty of physicians and doctors on the call, is so many risk factors: obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, us not knowing our numbers and having that trusting relationship with our care provider. So this campaign is really to partner with women who are well respected in the community, believe in this mission, can help us amplify our voices, meeting people where they are for those who need this information the most, and help us to bring that change. As the Heart Association, on our board of directors, is every single hospital in Tampa Bay is represented, from the C level, from the C-suite, from CEOs. Business leaders are also on our board of directors, and we work together with the funding that we get to serve our ambulatory clinics, those who do serve the underserved and zip codes. But if we don't have the power of that message of people who represent our communities, helping us to share that message and raise those much needed funds, we can't do the work and do the research, by the way, which African Americans are also underrepresented in clinical trials, which contributes to some of the disproportionate rates that we are impacted by. We don't have individuals like Cheryl and the other women of impact as a voice for us. We can't do the work that we need to do. We can't do it without you. So this is a really important campaign, not only for the funds that will serve our mission locally and nationally, but because this disparity, the understanding of it, needs to be elevated in our community by people who are trusted in the community.
Absolutely. Speaking of those relationships, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Kevin Sneed, the Dean of the USF College of Pharmacy, which is also a member of one of your boards. He's actively engaged in community-based participatory research and plays a big role in helping to improve the numbers of African Americans that participate in clinical trials. So speaking of the reason why we are here, not just, heart disease overall, but specifically today, we're focusing on the impact of women. And our very special guest and actual host, Cheryl J. Cousseau, has a story as to why she accepted this grand nomination and why just addressing this issue is really important to her. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Wow. Thank you so much. First of all, hey, happy Black History Month. Happy Women's Health Month. Go Red for Women. And my amazing, refers to Kiani, and my amazing group of ambassadors. These women are certainly power brokers, change makers, trailblazers, you name it, they have worn or is wearing that hat. To my dear sister and friend, my co-host, who today is the host of this show. You know I love you, girl. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Listen, this journey started some years ago, having lost both of my grandparents. And I named them in honor of them, Mrs. Marnice, the late Mrs. Marnice Brooks, and the late Mrs. Clifford Jennings. Both suffered from cardiovascular disease, one from a heart attack and the other from a stroke. As a young girl helping my great-grandparents, I always knew nursing was the path for me. Started with me being a Candy Stripe volunteer at the hospital and just always visiting nursing homes and wanting to care for people. That's just the trajectory that was set out for me from toddler, really. But that being said, and I must give a shout out to Jody Cooper Nelson, who was a member of my church, New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, where the Reverend Larry L. Roundtree served as our pastor. She and a retired Buccaneer, I remember, came to our church looking for individuals to support the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, but specifically they needed volunteers to run a marathon, and she got no takers. And I really felt bad for them. I was teaching a meeting, inviting them to my class, still no takers. I went home thinking about that and just was reminded in my spirit, I lost two incredible women to heart disease. Cheryl, here's an opportunity for you to make an impact. Not like this one today, but to make an impact. And as a result of that, I learned about it, reached out to my family and decided that I would run a marathon, 26.2 miles, in honor of them. And my living survivor had just recently had a stroke, Mary A. Jones, a member of New Mount Zion, and I ran for her as a survivor. And to this day, she has still survived that stroke, and praise God for that. So ultimately, he gets all of the honor and all of the praise. And those are the women that helped me to create this story. The thing that pushed it over for me when I met with the representatives from the American Heart Association was my husband, who had experienced, you name it, a number of cardiovascular issues and has spent a number months in the hospital being treated for cardiovascular disease. And so being his primary caregiver, that kind of nudged me. And the Lord just put in my spirit, you ran a marathon 17 years ago today for the American Heart Association. Raise a marathon of awareness, raise a marathon of people, and raise a marathon of funds.
Yeah.
Dr. Davis?
I love it. I love it. Raising a marathon. I don't know why I didn't get that theme before, but I am going to jump on it. Thank you so, so much. So the American Heart Association did a lot to really motivate you to raise awareness, to use your platform to help our community, maybe decrease the chances that we would have to, walk this path that you're walking. Of course, we all walk it together, but whatever we can do to decrease risk overall, we need to raise awareness and collectively do that. To Attorney Williams, tell us about your story. And I really, really, really want you to make sure to that you share how it impacted your quality of life, how it impacted your family's life, and also what role did the Heart Association play in your situation? If it didn't play a role, how could it have?
I am pleased to be here this morning to share with you. And it's so important for us to share among others who look like us, because we have some issues that are not so prominent in our discussions, our daily lives. We don't see them as being that. But I am the recipient of a congenital condition dealing with the heart, and I am a recipient of a bequest from my mother. She was a wonderful person, very loving. She led a sedentary life. And that is until my father died, and I took her to live with us, and I moved her. And she lived a much better quality of life. But I saw that as I was growing up, and I decided that was something that I did not want to emulate, but instead I would be on the move. So I've been active, and when I felt my condition manifesting itself, I was active. I was walking. I had walked all of my adult life, and when I say walk, I'm saying walking like maybe 5 miles a day, then exercising. Uh, I mean, really moving. So one particular morning, I had moved from Tampa to Plant City, but my group walked at 4 a.m. So I would have to leave Plant City pretty early to get into Tampa because they don't wait and they move. When I got there, I thought perhaps I hurried and maybe I need to leave at 2 instead of 2:30 so that I won't be, because I felt out of breath. And as I walked, my walking partners noticed that I was breathing with labor. I was keeping up, and then I realized I have a problem. Now this is it's unusual. I could feel a sensation going down my shoulders to my arms. I did not feel any problem with my heart, but I could feel that sensation, which was unusual. So I'm paying attention to my body. And as we walked, I asked them to please stop, which is a big no-no. But they did, and they said, okay, what's the problem? And I asked one of them to run back to the YMCA, get a car, and come back and pick us up because I couldn't walk anymore. I knew I couldn't. When I drove over to the hospital, I asked to be seen because of the way I was feeling. And I ended up staying, I can't remember, now it was a while ago, at least a week. And at that time, they implanted a cardiac stent. Another time, I was working in my office on Hillsborough Avenue. I was still working in Tampa, and I had a headache. I don't suffer from headaches. So I knew, again, something is unusual. And so I got myself back to Plant City, which I should not have done. I would not recommend that to anyone. I should have called 911. I should have gone to my doctor. It was right there in Tampa, but I wanted to come home. And my sister called 911. They came to pick me up, and they said I was threatening a stroke. So when I did my research about those cardiovascular kinds of issues, I understand that one of the things that we don't typically relate to heart issues is our real high of
Blood pressure.
effects of hypertension.
Yeah. Mhm.
Hypertension contributes to heart diseases, and we are unaware of that. And when we are unaware of that, we don't pay attention to the kind of medication, the kind of follow-up, the kind of activity that we need to be engaged in so that we don't have those entrees to heart conditions. Well, at least they would be controlled. Now we'd have them, but they would be controlled. And so Black women may not be relating heart condition with hypertension. And I'd like to make sure that we are aware of that.
That is wonderful, and that is profound. And later on, we will definitely get to some of those symptoms. I'm so pleased that you brought up that you did not experience the traditional symptoms like most people think, the Fred Sanford, picture of having a heart attack or having a heart issue.
Mhm.
Dr. Winters, like myself, is a nurse practitioner. And as a nurse anesthetist, you may have even been in some procedures and seen some of these things right out before your eyes. Your experience with heart disease, and if the Heart Association or other organization played any role beyond your professional experience in increasing your awareness or modifying some behaviors that may have decreased the occurrences.
Yes, thank you so much. And again, thank you, Ms. Cusseau, for having me on your show today. So I stand here in place of and for my mother. When we realized that she not only was suffering from the high blood pressure, but then there was another diagnosis that was introduced into the series of issues that she deals with today, I was very concerned and I was very uneasy when the information was revealed. At that time, I was currently living in Maryland, and I actually was preparing to start an assignment in Orlando to work for a level 1 trauma center. So my mother's most recent diagnosis that hit the family as well as her about 3.5 years ago was the pulmonary hypertension. And that became apparent to her late in 2019. So she was started on a medication which was known as Adempas by her cardio and pulmonary physician. And for those of you who don't know about that medication, it's actually approved to treat chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension that has either been treated through surgery, but who continue to have those high pressures, they're persistent, or it comes back after surgery, or it cannot be treated at all, totally inoperable. So in addition to that medication that was used for her diagnosis, it also can be used for pulmonary arterial hypertension, which I'm sure Dr. Davis is aware of. Now, please note that the Adempas information that I've currently shared with you actually came from her cardio pulmonary doctor, as well as the Adempas website. Now, before she started that medication, or anyone can start that medication, you have to be approved by the physician. It's followed by a lot of paperwork. After the medication is approved, due to the high cost of it, most likely you'll probably need a grant or some type of special assistance to help cover the cost of that medication. Most times the grant money is available, and sometimes it is not. So therefore, you have to hopefully be prayerful and hopeful that you can depend on other programs that can help to cover that cost. So that med is extremely expensive. It requires consultation from special pharmacists who are trained to monitor those patients on that medication, as well as the patient being followed by a nurse on a bi-weekly basis to check vital signs, to check how well those patients are doing, to stay on top of any type of side effects of those medications so that it can be referred back to the physician. It also must be titrated up every so many weeks if the patient is able to tolerate the titration of that medication. Well, that's when we experienced that my mother, Miss Nelson, was not able to tolerate the high levels of that medication. The nurse came to the house to visit her one day for a visit. Her heart rate was 150s, 160s plus, a systolic number. The top number of her blood pressure was well over 200. The nurse then immediately called 911. The paramedics came to the house and had to transfer my mother to Tampa General Hospital for a 2.5 to 3 week stay. Now, what I want the listeners to picture at this particular time, this was during COVID-19. It was in full force, which means no family members were allowed to enter that hospital. So you had to trust and receive the reports from the staff and pray that your loved one was receiving the best care for their condition. So immediately upon my mom's admission to that hospital, by default, I became that spokesperson for the family because I had to prevent those constant daily phone calls that can be a distraction to the staff when they are trying to focus primarily on the patients that are in that hospital. So after being discharged from the hospital and advised of those new findings, which were blood clots in the lungs, and that then began to affect the heart. We talked more and more with the doctor. They then thought that she would be a candidate for a procedure, if I'm not mistaken, was called the pulmonary thromboendarterectomy or a balloon procedure. And he actually suggested or referred that we go to Mass General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. He had sent maybe 2 patients there that had some relief of their pulmonary hypertension. But at that particular time, I didn't worry about the cost of things. I was just trying to find the best possible care for my mother and her condition because I didn't think, and her doctor didn't think either, that we could find that optimal care for her here. And based on the special program at Mass General, that is where that took us. So we were prepared after they worked her up. If she was going to be a candidate for this, there was going to be at least a 3 to 4 week stay at Mass General. She would remain intubated for 1 week before they could wean her off the ventilator. Then we were talking about rehab at the #1 rehab center in probably the world, and that's Spalding, which is in Massachusetts. So we were prepared for that as a family. And when I say the family immediately stepped up and stepped in so that we can prepare not only her, but ourselves as far as what was going to be required in order to hopefully pray that she was able to gain a better quality of life. Well, after getting to Mass General, they seen the fluid overload on mom. They immediately admitted her to the hospital. They tried or attempted to do a cardiac cath. They had to abort the procedure because she needed to be diuresed severely. They couldn't see anything. By the time we left Mass General, they were able to go back in and do another cardiac cath. They had taken off 40 pounds of fluid off of my mom. When we got back on the plane from Mass General back to Florida, my mother actually looked like herself again. Now, of course, the problems she had were still happening internally, but she did not look like the person that boarded that plane when we were on our way to Mass General. And mind you, there's special things that need to be done when you're traveling with oxygen. I had to make sure I had enough batteries. I had to get the approval from the airports. So it was a lot that had to take place in order to get her there. But when we did, we were pleased with the way that they were able to diurese her. However, she didn't have to worry about having that big surgery because when they got into the lungs to do the cardiac cath, they seen only a few areas that were clotted with blood clots that were scarred off with scar tissue, which means it did not warrant her to be one of the top candidates for that extensive procedure. But we had to think of another plan. So the other plan was when you get back to Florida, we're going to talk about more medications.
Sarah Winters,
yes.
that we're going to take a pause on
Okay.
that plan. We have just a minute right before our commercial break. Do we have time to get that caller in ahead of the commercial, or we need to get them on the other side? Cheryl, Daryl? We may have to get that caller in right on the other side. We will be right back for a commercial after our commercial break from Moffitt Cancer Center. We certainly want to acknowledge them as a wonderful part that allows us to put this show on, and also, give some credit to them because, we don't experience heart disease or cancer or diabetes or anything as a single system. We actually have these things that have compounded risk, and cancer is one of those. Let's see what Moffitt has to share with us today.
And we are back. Hello to our Facebook listening family, to those of you who are listening in Touch News Radio, in Touch News Facebook, in Touch News YouTube. We appreciate you all taking your lunch break with us. Just full transparency, we couldn't hear the commercial, so we hope we're not actually speaking over the commercial, but we did have a question. And again, let me just take this opportunity because Dr. Davis is at the helm to thank you, Ms. Kiana Cressman, all of our amazing, amazing women of impact. Right at the beginning of the show, we were listening to nurse practitioner Sabrina Winters, who was sharing some poignant information to us, very important information to us about what family members must go through. Trust me, I am here with her. I understand the weight, the 40 pounds off of a person's heart. I understand the diuresis. I understand. We just learned my husband's new medication costs a whopping $250,000 for a treatment. And this is information we need to communicate, Kiana, out to the masses so that they will know what to do, how to do it. This impacts your family, your health, your resources. It affects you financially, physically, mentally. Some days you don't even know what day of the week it is. But that being said, a special thanks to Moffitt Cancer Center. Dr. Davis, are you back?
I am back. Do we still have that caller on the line? We would love.
Here's the question. The question is the name and the cost of medications which Sabrina's mother, Mrs. Nelson, could not tolerate, as well as the insurance type which provided their ability to be treated at Mass General. Anything you can share with us on that, Ms. Winters?
I'd be happy to. So the current medication that my mother is on, where she was not able to tolerate the increase of the med, is Adempas, ADEMPAS. She has to remain at the 1 milligram 3 times a day. Titrating her puts her in rhabdo, puts her in SVT. So she was not able to tolerate it at all. It actually bought her a trip to Tampa General for 2.5 to 3 weeks. So the other medications that she also has been put on since returning back from Mass General are Opsumit, OPSUMIT, and Uptravi, UPTRAVI. Those two particular medications do come with several different side effects. In fact, we're in the process now of switching out the Uptravi because it's causing a lot of gastrointestinal issues, and replacing it with a new medication that the doctor shared with me that's called Travaso, if I'm not mistaken. I can look at the spelling on my phone, but we're going to see if we can switch out Uptravi for another medication, which is an inhalational agent, which she would have to give herself a puff one time, 4 times a day, 1 puff. We're going to switch that out to see if that will help with the gastrointestinal issues that she has been dealing with. But Opsumit, it comes along with it as well. If I'm not mistaken, I believe her Uptravi, she has to take that about 2 times a day, and the Opsumit is 1 time a day, if I'm not mistaken. That's where we are right now with the medications. Now, I think the other part of that question was coverage. How are we covering those medications? Well, her cardiopulmonary doctor actually helped us, or should I say the staff in the office, helped us fill out paperwork after he approved, based on her severe condition, to help us apply for grant monies to cover those medications. And then if for some reason that particular company or organization has run out of money or have no grant money available, or you don't apply for the grant, or should I say get approved for the grant, then there's other services out there that you can go to as another alternative to see if they can help you cover the drugs. And
Dr. Winters, I think that is a great segue to talk about barriers, because tolerance and communication with healthcare providers sometimes keeps us from going forward. And we oftentimes, when I say we, I'm talking about African Americans, we get patients that just stop therapies and wait to their next visit before something is done. So barriers to care, that is something that Ms. Cressman specializes in as one of those social determinants of health. Not only could there be barriers from a cost standpoint, there are barriers sometimes for health literacy or education standpoints, ability to communicate with healthcare providers, even access to healthcare providers. How can the Heart Association help us mitigate some of those issues? Ms. Cressman?
Thank you for that great question. The Heart Association operates as a convener. We are not a direct to service provider. So we don't provide Meals on Wheels or direct to service services. What we do is rely on the partnership of our funders to make sure we can meet people with where they are with identified resources that help to remove those barriers to everyone having equitable opportunity and access to quality healthcare. Not just healthcare, but the equity in it is that it's quality. And so one of the initiatives that we do around heart health, it's called our Self-Monitoring Blood Pressure Initiative. As you know, we are a public health organization, and the physicians who work with patients such as Ms. Winter's mother, your husband, Cheryl, Dr. Davis, that work alongside of you, they rely on our research, on our studies, on our data to drive a lot of the decisions that they make. But on the ground level, when we partner with our funders and campaigns such as Women of Impact contribute to these opportunities, we're able to help remove transportation barriers as one of the many barriers for those who cannot see their clinicians or get to a clinic or a hospital as often as possible, but need to monitor their blood pressure. So it's called our Self-Monitoring Blood Pressure Initiative, or SMBP program, where we provide blood pressure devices at no cost, and those individuals are able to communicate with their care provider. But not only do we provide the devices, we have a turnkey system that the clinicians can use to give information on how to properly take the blood pressure, how to monitor the blood pressure. We also give them training tools to train their medical assistants and staff that work alongside of the nurse practitioners, doctors, and other navigators and care team providers, so they don't have to create or try to work on creating evidence-based information that serves these patients in a way that meets them where they are. So those are some of the resources that come from the Heart Association by way of our funders. And we've worked with over, just in the last year, 49 ambulatory clinics, ambulatory meaning outpatient services for people who may have a certain income bracket or, you know, are at a certain level of affordability for insurance. One family shared, my mother finally now has normal blood pressure. She's not trying to go to Walgreens. She's not trying to go to CVS. Because of the Heart Association partnering with our clinics in those zip codes that needed the most, she's now able to stabilize and monitor her blood pressure, which decreases those risks for cardiovascular arrest and stroke, as well as other issues.
I think that's amazing. So, you know, with being a representative from the Heart Association, we're going to hold you accountable here.
Dr. Davis.
Now, you talked about,
Dr. Davis.
I'm coming right to you, Ms. Williams. I'm coming right to you, Attorney Williams. Now, you talked about ways that the Heart Association reaches out to increase awareness, to make sure BP monitors are available to people like Attorney Williams. It could have helped her mother. It could have helped her, and the awareness could have helped her. She had some very atypical symptoms: the labored breathing, the headache, and almost a near stroke. And just, you know, being able to look back and say, man, what was the role of hypertension in there? I think that if some more community awareness could have maybe sped some of those up. Other things that even Dr. Winters brought up, it's not always, you know, a heart attack. It's not always a stroke. It could be a rhythm issue. It could be hypertension in between the sides of the heart and the pulmonary hypertension. It could be a rhythm issue. Awareness is everything. So, Attorney Williams, talk to us about where awareness could have helped you if barriers were an issue with you. Tell us more.
Well, let me tell you that I did receive a telephone call. And Kiana, you may not be aware of this, but the telephone call was from volunteers from the American Heart Association.
Okay.
And I, you know, it was just one evening after work, and they wanted to know, did you know? And so they engaged me in conversation about heart health. And I'm a walker. And so then they helped me to engage with others who were doing, you know, the little runs that you do, maybe 15K or 5K or whatever it is that you can do.
Okay.
But that got me involved with the Heart Association. And I didn't have to solicit it. And you may not know that there are volunteers who are doing that. And that was really very good because it brought to me a sense of awareness. And I think that more of that, maybe in conjunction with related issues like hypertension. And you know, we do walks for this and we do walks for that. Well, while we're walking, some people can talk. I can't because I have a sickle cell trait and I have to really breathe while I'm walking. But I can walk and I will walk. But there is information that they share on brochures. And then I talk a lot and I can talk with other people and we can share printed information so that people are more aware. And many of us are members of these I call them old ladies groups at the churches. You know, Miss you know what I mean?
Silver sneakers.
Yes, yeah, at the YMCA. We can talk, we can share, because some people just aren't aware. And like if I had not had some sense of, you know what, you need some help, just having the sensations going down my arm, that wouldn't say I'm having a heart attack. And as you said, I wasn't grabbing my heart, but I knew something was wrong. And I realized that I'm having a headache and I don't suffer from headaches. So I called the security guard at the building where I was working and told him that I was having a problem. Don't let any other clients come up. I needed to make a transition. So we need to be aware of ourselves. And that's not very easy, I tell you, because we take so much for granted. And
Those
in my family, there was one family member who was unaware that he had hypertension and ended up having to go on dialysis and then having a kidney transplant. And see, all of this is connected.
All of
It's
this,
not
yes.
an isolated situation. Our body is not that way. We have systems that work, and they are related.
I think those things are
Wow.
really important. And thank you so much, Attorney Williams, for drawing that complete picture of how we all are interconnected, which makes it so much more important to be proactive. That means look at your situation before one of these events happens so that you know, so that you have grounds to prevent. How are your kidneys? How is your blood pressure? How is your cholesterol? Can we do more for our weight? What is our family history? Are we communicating enough, not only with our healthcare providers, if we have them, but are we communicating enough with one another in our family, in, our churches, in our social organizations? Are we communicating enough just to raise awareness?
Yes.
We had talked about holding Ms. Cressman accountable, but it sounds like that she and the Heart Association are absolutely, on point and on notice and understand what's going on in our community. We're trying to raise awareness to do more. So let me pivot back to the reason that we are Hearts for Cheryl. Today we're going red for Cheryl this month and for this show. She is the first woman of color, the first African-American here in the Tampa area to be nominated for this Woman of Impact distinction. So before Cheryl speaks, Ms. Cressman, can you tell us where we are on the national scale right now?
I would love I would love to have some specific quantifiable numbers, but what I can tell you is you're high up there. I have seen the names and some of the updates going, and you're making a tremendous impact. We've already exceeded where we were last year at this time within 4 days for the whole campaign last year. So not only the awareness, but the funds that are being raised. Just to give you a little bit about where we are, what we raised through the whole campaign last year, we exceeded that in the first 4 days. So thank you so much. And I wanted to share, as Ms. Williams was talking about, or Attorney Williams was talking about some of the symptoms, and you, Dr. Davis, were talking about knowing your body. Real quick, we have an acronym that many of you may know, FAST, at the Heart Association, to identify when you're having a stroke, or there are some significant challenges that you need to be paying attention to, whether it's you or someone that you know or love. FAST is F, face drooping. A is arm weakness. S is speech difficulty. It may be slurred. It may be hard for you to communicate your words. And then T is time to call 911 immediately. If you notice any of those symptoms, we want you to fast, quick, call 911. Don't brush it off being busy or something else. We want you to get in touch, with the appropriate care team. And also, I just want to say, not only are we doing, that's just one initiative that we're doing with self-monitoring blood pressure initiatives, but we're also on the edge of policy creation, working with lawmakers, whether it's maternal health, whether it's nutrition security, all of those determinants of where we work, play, live, and pray. We are addressing all of those in several ways, whether it's advocacy or working with clinics or a variety of other ways. And that's what your funds go to when you support the amazing Cheryl Cousseau and the other amazing women who are part of this Women of Impact Circle, and those who volunteer and support Heart.
What's the time frame? What's the time frame for donations?
Let's get right to it.
Yeah.
Today through April 6th.
While you're at it and giving us this time frame, Cheryl, tell us more about this marathon and how we can get engaged.
All right, there are 3 parts: the Marathon of Awareness, And let me just talk about that, and Kiana could run those down. But we really, if you scan that QR code, Ricky, if you can put up that QR code and share the QR code in our thank you post, you can scan the QR code and you can learn individuals, males and females. Men, do it for the woman in your life and help save the woman in your life. Scan the QR code. All of the information is there. There's an activity, not extensive activity. One takes 90 seconds. As a matter of fact, if we can go ahead and plug this in, Dr. Davis, Damar Hamlin, the football player that had the heart attack live on national television, got CPR right there at the football game, will kick off week number 3. And this has been trademarked. #3 is kicking off the CPR initiative. But before that is week 2. How you can participate? Well, that takes us to raising a marathon of people. We need 262 of you to register to participate in this 8-week activity. Again, they're very small. Week 1 starts on the 12th. Our Super Bowl, for your Super Bowl, is to take care of your super healthy self. And again, the woman in your life. We need you to be the beat. Males and females, we need you to register. The link will be up there for you to register. It takes less than 5 minutes. Share the story of the person in your life that has been directly affected with cardiovascular disease. The statistics say it's happening. The statistics say every 80 seconds, a woman has a heart attack. Listen, share this video across all of your social media platforms. This supports all of the nominees. I just happen to be one of them and want to make a significant impact. The first, you can only be the first one, but there's another one coming up or has come up, but let's focus on that. Raising the awareness, raising the marathon of people to take part in 8 activities, 1 a week, and you have 1 week to complete the entire. Really, you can watch a video for 90 seconds. You're done for week 3. Tell us a little bit about what your plan is, as you heard Attorney Williams say, as you heard Nurse Practitioner Winters say. The family needs to plan when this happens. And lastly, cut the check.
Cut the check, absolutely. So we have made a heart print nationally out of the gate in 4 days. Dr. Winters, highlight some of those things that we don't think about, right? As we wrap up, give us some pointers on those rhythms that we don't think about. What else is there besides heart attack and stroke affecting our moms, our sisters, ourselves?
Yes.
You're on mute, Sora. You're on mute.
Thank you so much for that. We don't think about or talk about as I said, my mother went into the SVT, which was the supraventricular tachycardia, where that heart rate was in the 150s, 160s. Her heart felt like it was jumping out of her chest, but like most of our strong Black women do, we figure, oh, it's nothing. It'll go away. Maybe I did something too strenuous. Maybe it'll go away. So I thank God for that nurse that came by and visited that day. She also has the diagnosis of afibrillation. The heart is fibrillating. So that means that the oxygen and the blood that is within her system is not being equalized throughout the body in order for it as well as her heart to survive. So we're on blood thinners for that, because we don't want that blood pooling in one particular area and not doing the work that it needs to do to prevent her from being tired, weak, shortness of breath, or having a stroke or a heart attack. So those are some of those other algorithms that we need to be careful about. And most times, depending, the doctors will put them on beta blockers to help control those heart rates. So she's on several different blood pressure medications, along with what she needs for that pulmonary hypertension. And then there's the continuous 3 liters a day of the oxygen that she lives on right now. So she's tethered to a cord that's long enough for her to move about the home, but at the same time, give her body the oxygen that it needs in order for her to survive. I want to say this, and this is very important. Miss Kiana Cressman, thank you so much for the algorithms that come out of the American Heart Association. Those algorithms are what help save lives. My mother
Thank
just had
you.
a 2022 visit at Tampa General Hospital, and I got a call last week from a company that is what is called a new home cardiac rehab program, and they use the algorithms of the American Heart Association, and they do this program in conjunction with the Tampa General Hospital. And when they told me all that they offered, I got so excited. I haven't had the time to let mom know yet, but if she's listening, get ready, mom, because I've got an in-home cardiac rehab program that you can do. They will supply you with the iPad. It's only for about 30 minutes, about 1 to 2 times a week, 12-week program. What they're trying to do is make the heart stronger. And I appreciate them that they offer. I don't know if you've ever heard of the company before. I don't work for them and I'm not advertising, but I'm telling you, I was surprised to hear about the program. They were surprised she wasn't already on it. So I'm looking forward to signing her up with that company. So thank you again for those algorithms that come out of the American Heart Association.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
So, we are
You know
wrapping
what,
up
Dr.
just-
Davis? You know what, Dr. Davis? Everything that Serena Winters is talking about. We were just at Tampa General Heart Institute yesterday, and my husband wasn't able to go through the ablation procedure. So these electric physicians were there to tell us exactly what she's talking about and other things, another heart medication that's out there that we have to, research. But it's happening. Everything that she said, I've gone through it all. We're still going through it. Back to you, Dr. Davis.
So I think those were absolutely important points, especially that Dr. Winters brought up, beyond heart attack and stroke, beyond the typical medications, everything else that goes into preserving the heart, preserving those rhythms. And that's exactly what we saw in that NFL game, was a rhythm disorder, a very rare rhythm disorder that, and again, CPR was able to save his life right there on the spot. So in light of what we've heard and learned there, Ms. Cressman, give us some final points that the Heart Association has to advise the most vulnerable of us, the most, us that need the most health literacy to prevent these things from happening in our community. Give us some final points from the Heart Association that speaks right to the heart of our issue.
Sure. It would be the 3 words: know your numbers, and learning what those numbers are that you need to know: your blood sugar, your cholesterol, your blood pressure. Those are like the basics. We call it our trifecta. Those 3 things that are critical that people typically aren't cognizant or aware of. And at heart.org, if you go to www.heart.org, you can find information called Life's Essential 8. It used to be, and I'll make sure that, that information is also provided so that your listeners can look at it. But it's the 8 essential basic areas to know, maintain, and practical ways that the everyday person can monitor what is their cholesterol, what does that mean, what does physical activity mean for me, what kind of sleep should I be getting, because that impacts my heart and brain health. So it's 8 essentials to healthy living that we provide, that are evidence-based, created by physicians, scientists, all of those who are part of the American Heart Association, and we provide that, as well as basic information that's easy to understand for people at various levels of literacy, and what high blood pressure is, what levels are at your high risk at. All of that is provided in that Life's Essential 8. And it's an easy way for people to remember, how they can help improve and sustain their health. So I'll make sure you have that link, but you can go to heart.org, www.heart.org.
Absolutely. And Attorney Williams, from the experiential standpoint, what are those 3 pointers that everyone needs to look out for in knowing themselves? And we'll wrap up with our special guest, Cheryl J. Cusseau.
I want to say that it's really very important for us to be able to communicate. Communicate. Be aware personally, but be able to communicate. we need to be able to communicate with our medical professionals. That is not that easy. It sounds like it for you, Dr. Davis, because that's what you do. It sounds like it for you, Ms. Winters, that's what you do. But when we talk about our issues, we may be too vague. We're not specific enough so that there can be some intervention before there is the episode that can carry us out. And, over at the AME church, I'm a member of the Young at Heart, and there are professionals who come from various agencies to discuss different issues. And perhaps the Heart Association can dispatch volunteers to go out with information, to give information and answer questions, to make sure that there is a dialogue that is in the making, so that when we go to our medical professionals, we can communicate. Communication is very important, and being aware of ourselves, as I was when I was walking or when I was working. I'm always moving, but I'm also paying attention. Why am I having a headache? So just being aware, and I either tell my daughter or I tell my sister, both of whom work with me very closely, and I do need that because I'm thinking, so we need to be able to communicate and have others to teach us to communicate. And I think the American Heart Association would do well to send to dispatch some people out
Yes.
to talk with these different groups.
Absolutely. Special guest.
Absolutely.
Listen, I'm overwhelmed. I'm so appreciative. The information shared, I'm looking forward to Dr. Davis doing her own thing so that more of these types of conversations can take place. And we really need to get with the American Heart Association. The stories that we heard today, if it had not been for someone taking a step, we would not have these testimonies. And so you ask me why? Because of all of you. If we can help one person, even DJ CEO, and we'll share their story on the next show, is giving us a few more minutes to make sure that the message is heard and that the ask is clear. But before my final thoughts, she has been with us from the beginning of the show, muted throughout the whole show, sending us questions through the chat. Miss Smith Gordon, would you unmute and share your thoughts?
I am driving, so I can listen to you, but I really can't see you.
That's okay. We see your picture.
As a personal injury lawyer, that would not be the smart thing to do. But listen, a couple of things I want to point out is one, this is an outstanding program. Absolutely outstanding. I'm on a lot of programs. My background is as a pharmacist before I was a lawyer, and I'm still very engaged in pharmacy. Of course, I am the only girl. I'm the only daughter. I'm my mother's favorite daughter. And with that, I realized that we must take care of our parents as they have taken care of us.
Yes.
And one of the things that I want to point out to you all who are panelists, you are all very learned in the healthcare world. When you are speaking with lay people, they don't know those acronyms you're throwing out, and they don't understand diabetes. They don't know what that is. So break it down to them in plain language, if you would. Secondly, from that, it is, I think, important for us to understand, and I really want to hear from the nurse's point of view, or other doctors' point of view, and the doctors who are on are going to be rare in terms of this and probably will not apply. And that is Black women's challenges and having their doctors listen to them about their symptoms. I think there's some cultural competency issues there to be concerned about. And I'm not saying all doctors of other races are not good. I'm not saying all doctors of our races are any good either. But the challenges, so that we know perhaps from your standpoint, your viewpoint, how we need to communicate with doctors so that they hear what we say whatever our symptoms are, so that we can be properly treated.
I'll go first, and then I'll yield the last couple of minutes to Dr. Winters. You said something very key, Attorney Gordon. He says, how do the patients need to communicate with the doctors? We need to meet our patients where they are. We need to speak the language so that they can understand. So that's a huge problem. I think having Ms. Cressman, on our team, with this Woman of Impact nomination that Cheryl has accepted. We are raising this money. We are in this marathon to help inform the direction of community intervention so they can meet us where we are as a community to raise our awareness so that this chronic disease, these heart issues, disease, which can't be managed in the clinical area, can be aptly controlled, and we're taking the right steps in the home so we don't end up in the hospital, so that we don't end up, with Dr. Winters looking over us while we're under some kind of sedative state. So that's what we need to do. We need to do what we can to have healthcare providers meet our community where it is, and speak to us and bring us resources in a way and present it to us in a manner that we understand. Dr. Winters, these last couple of minutes.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. And you are so right, Attorney. Many individuals do not understand those terms that we shared on this call. And you know what? I think one of the most important thing for Black women to understand and realize is that we cannot treat our health as if it's a pass or just, I don't know. I think what's important, they have to be advocates. We have to advocate for our own health care. We have to be able to speak up and ask the questions and not ignore when something doesn't feel right in our bodies. There are several organizations nationwide that provide free education to communities. We bring the education to those communities for those that cannot reach us. Several of them, I won't call any names, but I know many of you know many of them that are spread throughout the nation, and we bring nothing but free education when it comes to our health, when it comes to education, when it comes to finance, when it comes to public policy. We're here. We offer these programs. We bring people on board to talk to our people in layman's terms so they can understand what is going on. Diuresis, very good example that you shared there. Too much fluid. My mother had so much fluid on her, she didn't look like herself. The hospital had to get rid of that fluid out of her body that had third spaced itself in areas where it didn't belong so that her organs would be able to function accordingly, because they were killing her heart, killing her lungs, killing her entire body, just tight with fluid. That's what I mean by that for those that may be listening now, for those that did not know. I love talking in layman's terms. I love educating. When I get patients here at the surgery center that come in with blood pressure shooting out of the roof, and they want to tell me that it was just because they didn't take their blood pressure the night before, I look at them and I say, in all honesty, I'm caring for you today. I'm very uncomfortable with that. If you're telling me just one dose of your medication has your blood pressure at 190, 200 systolic, you're not stable enough for me to provide you a safe anesthetic, because I don't know what's going to happen to you. So I've got to discuss this with my colleagues, and we got to figure out how to get this blood pressure down. And you have got to take action. Talk to your doctor. Tell them this medicine isn't working. Let's try something new. My case almost got canceled today because of my blood pressure. We got to be able to speak up and speak out. And right now, I am that strong advocate for my family. I'm the one that's in healthcare. My sister's in education, and my brother is an electrician. So when things happen to the family, guess who they come to? They come to me, because I'm that healthcare provider, and I'm going to those doctor visits, and I'm talking to those doctors, and I want them to know there is someone within this family that cares and knows what's going on. So we want answers. We want to make sure that you're giving us a great algorithm to follow in order to give my family the best quality of life. And that's what I can say about that. And again, I thank you again for that question, because that is so important, Attorney. Thank you so much.
Listen, thank you all. Again, special thanks to my co-host and the one that facilitated the entire show today, Dr. Shanae Davis of Your Best Year Clinic. We will list all of your contact information as far as reaching out to your businesses. To Kiani Cressman, thank you so much. We are so happy to be in a position to make an impact. It's going to take a marathon village to do this. So please share this video, like what you've heard today, and plan on raising a marathon with us of people awareness and as well funds. To you, Sabrina Winters, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm telling you all, Dr. Davis needs to do this once a week. To you, the Nubian queen on the show, Attorney Geraldine Williams, and her only daughter, Attorney Gordon, thank you so much. And perhaps you can partner with us, with her beautiful self. You can partner with us and Dr. Davis and Kiani and help us do exactly what you're challenging us to do. Begin to have the conversation in layman terms if we have to speak Ebonics with our culture. Because what did I say to you earlier? Every 80 seconds, a woman is having a heart attack. And it's us first. So we've got to wrap up the show. Thank you, DJ CEO. I'm going to apologize to Miss Yvonne. We couldn't get her on. We weren't quite sure. She wasn't one of the panelists. To Attorney Williams, your two gurus who chimed in. We're hoping they caught the show. If not, they can catch the replay. And we certainly want them to pass the word to the women in their lives to be the beat. Yes. Register, use the QR code, register, do the 8-week activities. And listen, between now and April 6th, write the check to the American Heart Association. We need your help. Cheryl said it. This show is a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Love you all.
Thank you. Outstanding show. Awesome. Thank you for having me.